Good morning, everyone. This is Jonathan Sanderson of Corecom Consulting. I'm here today with Kevin to do our first ever tech webinar. So we help a range of companies servicing them with their needs with award-winning technology recruitment. So thank you very much for everyone attending this morning. We shouldn't take any longer than 30 to 40 minutes, so I'll make this as brief and informative as we can. Just so everyone's aware, we're in the process of updating the software we use for our webinars. So I've muted everyone, so please don't unmute yourself. We don't want any swearing in the background or any noise on the recording itself. So as it's Mental Health Week, today's webinar is on workplace stress in technology. We're joined here by Kevin Whittington, who's Managing Director of Wellbeing Consulting Nooksrest. Hi, Kev.
Hi, John. Thanks for having me.
No worries at all. So, Kev, do you want to start off by introducing yourself so that everyone knows who you are?
Yeah, sure. My name's Kevin Whittington. I'm Managing Director at Nooksrest. I started working in IT about 35 years ago and settled down in BI for the last 20 years. For me, well-being has always been important. Whilst I was at Provident, I set up a well-being group which I ran for 9 years, helping colleagues to understand stress and how to manage it. I also worked with management team to help them be more well-being aware. I set up Nooksrest earlier this year to promote well-being in the workplace by teaching colleagues how to manage the stress in their lives through awareness of how stress affects them and mindfulness techniques. I also want to teach leaders and employees themselves how to modify working practices to reduce stress in their teams.
Okay, well, all sounds very good, Kev. So thank you for introducing yourself. And thanks everyone again for listening today. If people aren't able to dial on, then we will also be sending out the video later. Now, one of the reasons why we're doing this is because as a company, we strongly believe in well-being. And as this is a priority for a host of employees we work with, so there's going to be a free download podcast on our website as well as this, as part of Stress Awareness Month. That's also very popular, so please feel free to log on there and have a look. So before we start, if anyone has any questions or comments along the way, please use the chat facility and we'll answer them at the end. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Kev. So Kev, over to you.
Right, thanks very much, John. The agenda we've got for today is an overview of workplace stress, just touching on the most stressful jobs in technology. I understand that all jobs in technology have an element of stress, but some are more stressful than others. General health factors for a techie, about working at your computer for long periods. Stress specifics about the sort of stressful things or why technology is so stressful, and ways of reducing stress in technology, and then we'll conclude with questions and answers. So off we go. So an overview of workplace stress. Each year, stress-related illness costs the UK between 70 and 100 billion. Now, not all employees report stress, so it could be even more. People who have a migraine or a bit of a cold can quite often be off with stress. And the figures that are quoted above have come from the Centre for Mental Health. Stress-related illness causes a loss of productivity because the affected individuals can be less efficient, loss of work days due to sick leave, and long-term damage to those affected. Damage caused by stress is cumulative, and each occurrence leads to a reduction in resilience. And we find that in our teams that once someone has been off with stress for a period of time, when they come back, they are a little bit more vulnerable. And the point is that workplace stress can be managed, and I've worked in some places where workplace stress seems almost non-existent. So 1 in 4 people, the statistics say, suffer from a mental illness or stress-related illness. So do you know who in your organisation is suffering? How do you keep a tab on that? So, most stressful jobs in technology. So as businesses rely more on technology, jobs in the industry are becoming more stressful. The CIO magazine researched tech jobs and drew up the list that you can see on the screen now. The problem is that as businesses rely more on technology, that a lot more pressure is put on the technology teams to keep that technology up and running. So the health factors for a techie. We do spend a long time hunched up in front of the computers, and we all know people who suffer from backache or other similar pains from not getting the right posture and sitting for long periods. Sedentary lifestyles. IT professionals are prone to psychosomatic disorders, which are induced by abnormal stress levels, but also there's the problem of weight gain and just general lack of fitness through sitting in front of the computer all the time. IT professionals are prone to many different types of musculoskeletal disorders like trigger finger, carpal tunnel syndrome and tennis elbow. And prolonged sitting in certain position can cause like rounded shoulders, neck pain and headaches. The point is that we do need to look after ourselves and we need to look after our colleagues in technology. So if we look at stress specifics, what causes the stress for technology people, and as I mentioned earlier, highly technical workload and pressure to deliver state-of-the-art solutions. No company is willing to do with what they had yesterday. They want something bigger, faster, better, simpler. And a difficulty for the individual to keep up to date while delivering against ever-growing high priority backlogs. Training is very difficult to get hold of in a lot of companies. They don't want to spend the money on it, and they expect professional technology people to keep up to date themselves in their own free time, and it just makes it so much more difficult. Businesses are now demanding ever shorter release cycles. To keep up with everybody else, you've got to deliver the new stuff faster, more regularly, and it's all got to be working first time. The sprints, when people are working agile, are carrying heavier and heavier payloads. They expect the sprint velocities to be enormous now, which makes it so much more difficult for the developer, because the last point, testing time is becoming compromised. They stack so much development into a sprint that quite often we don't get enough time to test it properly, so we've always got the stress when things go live. Continuing on the stress specifics, there's a greater responsibility for the technical teams. As businesses rely more on technology, even small outages can be very costly. If you consider, say, a travel business, if their website goes down for a few hours, they could lose a hell of a lot of traffic to their competitors. So everything's got to be on 24/7, 365 days, and it's got to be reliable and a good experience for the customer. Technical staff are working increasingly long hours to handhold releases to cut down potential downtime. People are developing during the day and then being on call or actually in the building at night when the releases go live. So the long hours carry on with shorter release cycles, leading to pressures to deliver, and any problems, unforeseen problems on the development can lead to long working hours to catch up, to keep the sprints delivering on time. And developers are often used for out-of-hours support, leading to disrupted downtime. A lot of companies don't want to have a specific support team, so they put their developers on a support rota, and people just aren't getting the break away from work, which is just escalating the stress. So we've got tiredness-related stress. Well known that prolonged tiredness can lead to depressive illnesses. If you've had a long stint at work, everything seems a bit darker for the for next few days, and tired minds find it difficult to function, so even small issues can lead to stress. The other thing that really gets to techies is that they tend to drink too many caffeinated drinks to keep them awake and alert, so strong drinks and strong coffee and energy drinks. The problem is that caffeine can amplify symptoms of stress, and it ends up leading to burnout or depressive illnesses. And then sugary and high-fat snacks are used to keep the energy levels up, but because of the sedentary nature of the jobs, can lead to weight issues and deterioration of general health. And it's something that businesses just don't get a handle on. They keep talking about the fact that their employees are their greatest asset, but if they went around treating their computers and physical assets in the same way that they treat the employees in a blasé way, those assets won't last very long, and so it's a question that businesses need to really address. It's the treatment of the hardware against the treatment of staff. If they're all classed as big assets, surely they should be treated with the same level of care. So looking at ways of reducing stress in technology, like I say, stress can be managed, and I have worked in some very high-performing environments that are relatively stress-free. So leaders can start off by encouraging staff to take regular breaks, and they do that by making the breakout areas inviting. Quite often they're a bit like a Greasy Joe's calf, with dirty tables and worn out chairs and chip mugs and a kettle that takes forever to boil. So really need to get the breakout areas inviting and relaxing. Senior staff should use the breakout areas to set an example. And if you go past somebody who looks like they're really under the cosh, say, come on, have a cup of coffee, and just get that culture of downtime, get away from the computer. Putting recreational equipment in breakout areas is quite popular. Where I'm working at the moment, table football is a massive hit, and even the leaders go past and make a sign to say, let's go and have a game of table football, and 4 people get up and they go and have a game. It needs to have that leadership input and drive, because people are scared of, if I'm seen playing for table football all the time, I'm going to be in trouble. So the other thing is to be creative in the locations of meetings to get away from the office environment as much as possible. If you're having a one-to-one with someone, it doesn't have to be in a little pokey room in the office. You can go out and sit on a park bench, or even go in the pub. Get that culture of relaxation built into the company, and go for walks and things like that. Monitor workloads and manage your stakeholder expectations. Quite often the technology teams or the technology leadership are bullied or pushed into ever-increasing workloads by the stakeholders, and leadership have got to really take leadership and make the sprints more manageable. When they're building a roadmap for deliveries, make sure they're realistic, and be aware of the amount of people that you've got and what other business priorities there are. And you plan your resource to make sure you don't rely too much on a few people to deliver. In many places where I've worked, every meeting will say, oh, we're going to use so-and-so, and that same person is assigned to many projects because they're really good, but they're then put under far too much stress. So we can help with diet, so offer fruit and healthy snacks. Some places have a fruit day or things like that. it's a good start, but for the cost of a bowl of fruit every day, then why not make every day a fruit day and just get people into the habit of eating fresh stuff, and encourage drinking of healthier beverages. So instead of having just tea and coffee available, have fruit juices or squashes or something like that, to encourage people to drink more fluids but not take in more and more caffeine. You need to set up your teams to succeed. You've got to give them the proper tools, regular training and mentoring in office time. Make it something a little bit more regular than, when you've got a free moment, take a look at something. People have got to feel as though they're being invested in the same way that other investments are made in the business. Build training time into project timescales. So when you're working out what your resource is, reduce it by a suitable amount to allow for training, and also to allow for downtime, to get away from the desk so people aren't working solidly. And provide the right equipment and tools. There's nothing more frustrating than trying to hit a tight deadline with a machine that is working really slowly on outdated software and the wrong tools. People are likely to fail, and failure brings stress. It's important that leaders get to know their teams and look out for signs of stress. People often show signs of stress in quite subtle ways, where you get someone who's very talkative who goes quiet, or the other way around. You find that people spend longer staring at the screens and don't seem to be making much progress. Look out for those signs and do something about it. Take someone away from their desk and make it clear that they are that they are being supported in what they deliver. It's also worthwhile listening to what people say about issues outside of work, and be ready to help them by being more flexible. The problem with stress is that it doesn't all happen in work. Quite a lot of stress happens outside of work, and it's the bit in work that just tips people over the top. And something that's dear to my heart is invest in well-being. A small investment in a well-being service can pay for itself many times over and increase productivity, reduce absenteeism, and improve morale. Look after your people and let them know. It's also a great recruiting point to say, we have got these well-being services in, we've got great breakout areas, we encourage relaxation. All that sort of thing is very important. And how many of these activities are actually happening in your workplace? Are you aware of well-being activities? If not, then encourage HR to advertise them, or let people know what's going on. So, in conclusion, working in technology can be very stressful, but it doesn't have to be. And the message to leadership is that if you can't afford the resource to deliver a project without putting your staff under undue stress, you can't afford the project. You either pay for it up front by bringing in more staff, or you pay for it later with staff off sick and not being able to deliver. Be constantly vigilant. You must look after your teams. It's your moral and legal duty. You have a duty of care to make sure that the work environment does not affect the health of your employees. And also, you have a moral duty for the same. Everybody comes to work to do a good job, and it's up to you to support them in that. And finally, invest in well-being. A small amount of money spent looking after your teams will pay for itself, as I've said before. Your teams are important. Your business can't work without them. So make sure that they're well and truly supported.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that, Kev. So with wellbeing, think about how much you can improve your workplace. So how are you going to tackle the common problems associated with dealing with stress? Think about stress in the workplace and how to reduce prolonged sitting and repetitive movements. So I know I myself have suffered from tennis elbow in the past. It's a kind of common issue nowadays. So what are your takeaways? What have you gained from this morning? So if you'd like to tell us on the chat now. So certainly I think using the facilities provided, that's a very good point. So something we do as a company, we have wellbeing month. So every January, when everyone's up for this kind of thing, we have a physio coming in. We have exercise classes that we do. So we're also getting Kevin as well to do a guided meditation session for us. So Wellbeing Month is a great hit with our organisation. It's certainly something I recommend to everyone else out there as well. So we have a fruit bowl as well. I'm sure you'd be pleased to hear, Kev. So we provide fruit for all of our staff, and it really doesn't cost a great deal, but I do think it makes a great deal of difference. There are a lot of people that just wouldn't eat any fruit whatsoever if you didn't provide it for them. Obviously, with the busy lifestyles that people lead, they don't necessarily have a chance to go to the supermarket, pick up fruit. It's a secondary thing that they think of. So that's great. So like I say, fire your questions through. Yeah, so we've got just a comment here actually. So it says about how about looking after the staff, and the staff will look after your business. So yes, definitely agree with that one. So Kev, what are your thoughts on that? So what's your experience of kind of looking after staff, which has then kind of paid you back in dividends?
Well, but when I worked at my previous employer, I was senior manager of the BI team, and what I found was that if you are more flexible towards your team, if you treat them as adults, know each individual and what each individual needs to thrive, you find that the team becomes more loyal.
Yeah.
And a simple case of, if someone says, "Oh, I need to leave a little bit early today because," I always stop them at the because. I say, "I don't need to know why you need to leave early. Thanks for letting me know, and see you when you get back." And what you find is that they then put in more hours than they've taken because they feel really grateful for the opportunity and the flexibility. And when people are sort of have problems in their family at home, it's so easy to say to them, "Look, your body's here, but your mind isn't. Go home for a bit, and then come back when you're feeling more relaxed." And when they come back, they make up the hours and they're working more efficiently. So it's just a case of getting out of that. Everybody's got to work a 9 till 5.
Sure. Yeah. No. Definitely agree with that as well. So we've got a message here from Frank. So, do all companies have a wellbeing policy, and if so, who manages it? So, in your experience, Kev, what's that looked like before?
I have spoken to a lot of companies, and the HR policy tends to be, wellbeing policy tends to be run by HR, but quite often the policy stops in HR and nothing really happens about it. The big problem with companies, that I've noticed across the board, is that they are absolutely fantastic about putting people back on their feet after they've had a breakdown. There's phased return to work, there's occupational health, there's mental support, helplines, but actually very few companies do something beforehand and to keep an eye out on the staff and give them that support. And that's the sort of thing that Nooksrest Wellbeing is wanting to be able to offer to companies, to go in before people break down and give them the techniques to be more resilient. So yes, every company should have a wellbeing policy, but not every company does something about well-being in advance. They tend to do more about well-being after people have suffered. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I certainly think that all managers can do something about this as well. So you don't necessarily just have to wait for HR to tell you to do something like this. Why not just do it yourselves? So you look after your team, schedule an appointment in your diary, at least kind of, well, to start off with, you could start off with once a quarter, think about looking at it, reviewing it. What do we need to do? What do we need to improve? I guess best case scenario, if you could do it once a month, have something in there where you're scheduling time to look at the well-being of your staff and making sure that's happening? How often did you so in your kind of role, Kev, how often would you say that you focus on this?
Daily.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Everything I did was focused on the well-being of my team, because without my team I couldn't deliver.
Yeah.
A thing to watch out for as well as leaders is that our language and the way we go about things can affect well-being. And I made a point of not sending emails out over the weekend or after work unless it was something that was absolutely vital. A lot of leaders use weekend time to catch up on emails and send, oh, I've got to remember to tell Fred to do something. I'll send him an email now. Fred gets that email while he's at home and thinks, oh, I've got to get on with it now because he wants it by Monday.
Yeah.
And it's not always, so choose your language right, choose your time right. If you've got a set of emails you want to send out, prefix them by saying, this is for something I'll catch up with you next week, but I thought I'd give you a heads up.
Yeah.
Make it clear that it's not to be done now. And if you're going to send a criticism, prefix it by, this isn't a real issue, but we could do with sorting out. Make sure that the message comes across that people are not under scrutiny, they're not being told off, they're not in trouble, that the work that we're asking them to do is to be done during normal work hours. In fact, there's a company in Germany, and I need to look up who it is for future quoting, but there's a company in Germany that at exactly 5:30 every day, the desks rise up to the ceiling and the company throws everybody out because they say, wow, you are entitled to your time.
Yeah.
And just finally on that, I know I'm going on about this, but just finally on that, if you consider, if you bring on contract staff or part-time staff, they have specific hours to work. Part-time staff is, I work until 2:00 in the afternoon. At 2:00 in the afternoon, they pack up their stuff and go home. With contract staff, you are contracted to work up until 5:30. At 5:30 on the dot, most contractors pack up their bags and go home because that's the end of their contract. How come you have your permanent staff who are working full time get to that 5:30 in the evening and carry on working? As a business, you've got to treat everybody equally and say, I have contracted you as an employee to work up till 5:30. Why are you here beyond 5:30?
Yeah.
Is there something I'm doing wrong? Am I not supporting you? Am I giving you too much work? Is the work too difficult for you? Ask those questions. You don't just go around saying, oh, that's great, they're working long hours, we're getting something for free, because you never get anything for free because they go off sick.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So we've got another question here from Megan as well. So is mental wellbeing a joint effort between managers and employees? What are your thoughts on that, Kev?
Absolutely. It's up to the management to make supporting well-being a topic that is visible. As I said earlier, 1 in 4 people suffer mental illness in their lifetime. It means that those people are going to need support, but a lot of them don't feel capable or empowered to say, I suffer from mental illness.
Yeah.
I will make it clear to everybody on this webinar, I personally suffer from mental illness and have done for 30 years. And it's only because I've been open about it to my employers that I've got the right support.
Sure.
If I'd have kept quiet about it, they wouldn't know, and not many managers are as observant. So it's up to the management to set a culture where mental illness is not an issue, and it's up to the employee, the individual, to approach somebody they trust in the business and say, I'm struggling, I need help. And businesses are more than happy to provide that help. They have a duty of care to do so.
I think so in terms of that from the employee side as well. So something that I've noticed is that people are more than happy to tell you after they've just been through a really tough patch.
Yes.
And what you need to encourage is the opposite. You want them to tell you when they're struggling from the beginning. But obviously, as a manager, you need to be looking out for that as well.
Yes.
But but people seem to be okay with telling you once they've been through it, but they don't tell you before. And I think you're absolutely right. that people feel that it's a bit of a no-no to tell people that you're struggling, but if you just keep on going, then it's not going to get any better, is it? So,
well, mental health has always been a taboo, and we've got to break that taboo because, say, more and more people are suffering from it. This permanently connected world makes people under more stress, and depression is more rife within the country. So let's get to supporting people properly.
Yeah, definitely. I think if you couldn't use your arm one day, you wouldn't just carry on, would you? You'd go to the doctors, you'd do something about it. If your car stops working, you take it to get it fixed. If you're having issues mentally, then you should definitely look to get them fixed as well, because it's not going to get any better if you just leave it.
Yeah.
So we've got one last time for one last question here. So how long did it take to set up a wellbeing package for a company? Does it make any difference on the size of the company, and how often would you recommend going in to keep it on track?
Right. So the amount of time it takes to set up is really driven by the company. Quite a lot of companies need to go through a lot of procedures to get it out there, to let people know that such a package is going to be available, get the buy-in from senior staff, do some sort of census to find out how popular it would be, and so it is really driven by the company, but it could potentially be a very short timescale, like a week or two. The size of the company, it doesn't really matter. It just means how often you would need to get somebody in. If you've got somewhere that's got, say, 100 employees that 20 or so might want to take part, then obviously you only need one session to go. If you've got thousands of employees where there's a lot of demand, you might need several sessions just to get through them all, because obviously unless you've got a really big room, you're not going to get everybody in. What was the second part of that? Sorry, I missed the... So, yeah, and how often? Again, that really depends on the company and on the culture of the company. The way that I've always run them on a weekly basis, but some companies may just want to do it as a once a fortnight, once a month. It's entirely up to the culture of the company. The whole idea is to set up some sessions, see how they go, and then adjust to suit depending on the feedback from the staff. I'm happy to come and speak to any company. I'm restricted to Leeds at the moment, but any company in Leeds, I can come along and have a chat and maybe arrange a lunchtime session and do a sample session for people for free to see if it's the sort of thing that they want to go ahead with. There are many ways of delivering well-being, and some well-being practitioners just don't gel with the companies. So I'm more than happy to go in and do a lunchtime session free of charge just to see how the employees take to it.
Fantastic. That sounds like an offer you can't refuse. So we don't actually have time for any more questions right now. But if you do have any more, please do keep on sending them in, because we'll send these on to Kevin to answer. So obviously we recorded this session as well. So for those of you that want to have a listen back, feel free to do so, or feel free to share this with any colleagues that weren't able to make it today. So thank you for your help, Kev. I'm sure that the audience have taken away some very good points with this. So thank you very much for that. So in relation to Corecom Consulting and Wellbeing, we've got some white papers and podcasts on wellbeing and IT leadership, which we'll share with you over the next few weeks. We're always sharing content on our social media platforms as well, so please feel free to follow us. Thank you very much for attending today, and please enjoy the rest of your day, guys.